working in EV related areas, providing solutions to global customers, and also involved in working on advanced topic for next generation electrification products and solutions as a part of COE electrification. Pradeep sir started his career as scientific officer in Department of Atomic Energy, where he had 12 years stint in modeling and simulation of PHWR, nuclear reactor system and its controls. System engineering for EV, control systems, and simulations are key areas of interest to him. To take the discussion ahead and the webinar, now I pass on the dais to Pradeep sir. Pradeep sir, over to you, please.
Thank you, Manish. Welcome, Dr. Philip, Dr. Nishant, Mr. Nishant, and the audience and the skilling team. So what I will do is, to set the context, I'll give a very brief overview about the automotive scenario in India before we start getting into discussion. So Venkatesh, can you please share that slides? I'll take only maximum 4 or 5 minutes. So can go to the next. The key point what we wanted to highlight with respect to India automotive scenario is the kind of vehicle mix what we are having. Approximately about close to 80%, 75 to 82% varies year on year, is dominated by the two-wheeler, and there is around some 2 to 3% coming from three-wheelers, and approximately 15 to 18% coming from the passenger car, and the rest is coming from the buses and the light duty and heavy duty commercial vehicles. So this particular landscape we need to keep in mind when we discuss about what's our plan for electrification, how it is progressing, government focus, and the challenges associated with it are different for different segment. The charging solutions need to be different. So the whole thing need to be discussed based on this particular landscape. That is why this slide is important for us. And here you can see, we can go to the next slide. So here you can see the electrification scenario, and basically, essentially, you can look at the main business drivers with respect to electrification is with respect to the air pollution and the greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see the negative impact of both of this. Majority of our metro cities are falling under very high emission, highly polluted category, even in the world map. So the other one is with respect to greenhouse, and approximately, if I remember correctly, around some 2.6 million people are dying every year because of air pollution related issues. So the other part what we have to keep in mind is with respect to the import of oil, so which will cost around 112 billion USD per year approximately. So this figure also will give a good information to us what has happened with respect to the conversion of electrification. Especially you can see in the last 1 year, you can see there is about 179% jump as far as two-wheeler electrification vehicles are concerned, and approximately 114% increase in three-wheeler, and about 167% increase. And in three-wheeler, even though the total number is only 2 to 3% of the total market volume, but you can see percentage of conversion wise, three-wheeler is definitely heading the rest of the vehicle segment. Four-wheeler, we have around 154% rise compared to last year. So overall, you can see a very good things which is happening in the financial year 2022-2023. So where a large number of vehicles are sold, electric vehicles. So this is definitely a very good sign in terms of, especially when FAME 2 was introduced. Can you go to the next slide? So we have different kind of support coming from the government. One is the FAME 2 scheme, so which started in April 2029 with a total outlay of around 10,000 crore. And out of that, you can see 8,600 crore is coming from the demand incentives. So it is to generate or to create more and more demand. So majority of this particular fund
Mr. Pradeep.
Yeah.
Apologies to intervene. We have audience request asking you to speak up a bit louder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So the total outlay of FAME2 scheme is around 10,000 crore, and essentially it is for supporting the demand side incentives. Okay, it started in April 2019, and with a time frame of 3 years. But because of COVID, there was some kind of a disruption which has happened. Now the scheme is extended till March 2020. So essentially, it is providing various kind of support in terms of, and the main focus is with respect to two-wheeler, three-wheelers, and buses, and the commercially operated four-wheelers. So these are all the area of focus under FAME2. And apart from this, there is also a phased manufacturing plan associated with FAME2. So this is the essential support coming from the government. In addition to this, there are various PLI schemes. So this particular PLI scheme is supporting the supply side. So in terms of manufacturing all the two-wheeler component and mainly two-wheeler and three-wheeler side. So this is the overall scenario with respect to the India automotive market. So now we'll get into, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, okay. So I think PLI scheme, we don't have a slide, but actually there is a lot of incentives coming from on the supply side as well. So you can go back. So now with this introduction, so now we will get into discussion. So to make the discussion very clear, so what we have done is we have divided the vehicle segment into two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and the commercial vehicle passenger car segment separately. So that so we'll get a clear picture about what are the challenges facing, what are the opportunities in each of this particular segment separately, and then we'll conclude. And there is also, that means our discussion will get concluded saying that we would like to have the key points with respect to what are the challenges associated with each of the segment. That is one of the conclusion we wanted to make out of the discussion. The second conclusion we also wanted to discuss with respect to the skill development and how is the plan for the skill development required for this. Possibly a third conclusion we wanted to discuss, if time permits, out of all these areas, which area we feel like, okay, India can take lead. In case of IC engine technology, you know that we are always followers. And whereas in the electrification area, we definitely feel that we can take lead role in certain areas. So we'll try to conclude which are all the areas that is possible, and then what we should be doing in terms of taking that particular lead role. So these are all the conclusions expected out of this discussion. Anything Dr. Philip or Mr. Nishit want to add to this? Or Philip in terms of
yeah, that's right, Pradeep. I think India do have the strength because we have a very vibrant automotive industry here. We have highly skilled manpower, especially in the fields of electronics, telecommunications, and software. And EV being a highly software-defined vehicle, even like the scale of software for people who have been in the field would know, the scale and the depth of software functions in the EV is like an order of magnitude higher than IC engines. And we do have the skill sets for embedded system software, regular software professionals to achieve that level of integration. But what we lack is also the structured understanding of how these things are developed, how these things are industrially deployed rather than academically deployed in the marketplace. So yeah, I mean, that's where I think we should step in and then see how we can enhance the it's not the learning, it's not the education, it's more of the way people think, way the engineers think to make EV systems practical and reliable and cost effective in India.
So, Dr. Philip, you want to say that it should not be more with academic kind of things, it should be more practical and industry-oriented training or education.
Yes, I mean, for example, failure modes. We don't teach failure modes in universities, right? I mean, that's okay though. I mean, you keep learning failure modes and nobody wants to be an engineer. But
Exactly.
but that's the reality of life. When it comes to engineering, it's not about what works, it's about what doesn't fail. So that paradigm shifting thinking has to happen, but that needs to be inculcated in. I mean, if you look at a European or Japanese engineering talent, they do have this ingrained through their career in terms of how their supervisors ask questions, how their technical reviews take place, and also how their training regime actually happens throughout their professional career. And we need to bring those aspects and bring in those concepts into our early engineers, curriculum, if you will, more of a training regime or the skill development regime, so that they think in that direction and then they keep improving the failure robustness against failure of the systems which they build.
Yeah, fully agree, Dr. Philip. Actually, we have a certain experience where some of the colleges where we are interacting, so they always think about all the components will work in the positive direction, and they never think about how the failure happens, because that particular thought process is not there as part of the curriculum. And of
Right.
course, they what is also in addition missing was in terms of looking at things from a system perspective.
Yeah.
How the components put together will work from a system perspective. Even though they are learning everything, all topics are learned, power electronics is learned, machine is learned, control system is learned, but everything put together, how do you visualize the whole stuff from a system engineering perspective? In addition to the failure mode you mentioned, I also seen that the system perspective is also missing, which can be easily introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Nishant, do you want to add anything further to this, Nishit?
Yeah, so interesting. Just one thing I would like to add, and that is what is also happening now. So it is becoming a trend that how academia is contributing to the transformation is also through promoting the startup culture, which is very evident now. A lot of universities are coming up with the incubation centers, so they'll actually encourage students to practically apply whatever they are learning. And there only trying to understand. Okay, now this FMEA, for example, is one thing, but that culture is now building up. So something which was earlier missing, now we see a lot happening across the country. So I think that is one positive step which is being, at least we can see in the industry now.
Okay, so we'll come back to this topic of skill development a little bit later in detail. So let us start our discussion with, as I said, we want to divide the vehicle segments separately. So let us start with the two-wheeler. And in terms of two-wheeler, we have seen that approximately 80% of the market share is from the two-wheeler, and it will have its own challenges. And so I would like to know from Dr. Philip, how do you see the landscape of converting this two-wheeler into electrification? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities for us? And can we take a lead role?
Right. India is one of the largest markets for two-wheelers, and we are a two-wheeler dominated market. So both ways, India has that pivot position, because for domestic demand for two-wheelers is very high, as well as overall in the global scenario also, India has a large volume of two-wheeler products to actually demand some kind of localization, some kind of bargain, a large volume, large scale rather. So definitely, two-wheelers is an easy way for electrification in India. The challenge, though, is of course the harsh conditions in India. So we have high temperatures, high humidity, high shocks and vibration, high chances of flooding and submersion, and high exposure to dust. So all these 5 aspects actually are very detrimental to all the electronic components and the battery pack. See, for example, if you look at IC engine, the IC engine combustion happens at 2200 degrees centigrade or about 2000 degrees centigrade thereabout. So the ambient changes from 45 to 60 or down to -10. Once the engine is running, it doesn't really matter. Whereas the cell electrochemistry happens at 30 to 45 degrees centigrade. And so if the ambient is 45, your heat gets blocked. And then you have a problem, right? And the battery goes into derating and, so fundamentally, India will need a tropical cell to actually make really cost-effective vehicles. But unfortunately, most of the research in cells are happening in temperate climates. So obviously, it's a long shot that we get a tropical cell. The best thing we can do is to engineer good thermal management systems, if possible, low-cost active cooling system, or a very, very effective design of thermal heat rejection mechanism, whether it's extremely good heat sinks, optimized airflow paths, good ducting. So I'll just give you one example of how these challenges are unique to India. And unless our engineers solve these problems, you can't expect German engineers or Japanese engineers to solve these problems. I've seen in my own career how these technologies have been brought from Japan or Germany or Austria. And I'm not saying only EV, but also IC engine. And they struggle in Indian context to make the system reliable. And the customers who are actually paying a premium gets impatient about why certain things are not working the way it's working. And so it's up to us to actually develop the overall knowledge base in India, the skill set in India to develop robust electric products. And one way I can really tell you, except for the batteries which have a problem with low temperature, what works in India will work beautifully well around the world, whether it is Nigeria, whether it's Tanzania, whether it is Southeast Asia, whether it is Spain or Northern Europe, maybe not Northern Europe, but most of the Southern Europe, Latin America. So once you perfect these two-wheelers and three-wheelers electric products in India in a very robust way, the world is a stage for our products. Because what has happened now is EV has been a big leveler in terms of technology in automotive, because IC engines, you're right, Pradeep, we lost almost 4 decades of IC engine head start. We talk of CRDA and that kind of technology which are relatively new. We're still about 40 years back. Whereas in EV, we are not back at all. I mean, EV demonstrators, EV pilot programs started in India at the same time when they were starting in Europe. So we have not lost any head start. Yes, we have still some difficulty in accessing technology which are basically emanating from China. And probably we have some difficulty in localizing some of the technologies the way we want to, because there are global headwinds which are not helping us. But it's not that we are 40 years behind. We are concurrent in terms of global players. And once we build a scale ourselves by a proper incentive scheme and the general public mindset towards EV, which is happening now, I think we are at the cusp where we will take on the entire world in terms of electric vehicle products. And this includes both two-wheeler and three-wheeler.
So essentially what you're saying is because of the environmental conditions in India, especially the temperature, and we need to have the product, a robust product which is exclusively designed for India. So I want to ask one question, Nishit. We have seen that in the two-wheeler and three-wheeler, there are a lot of certified manufacturers, around 45 in number. So when such a big number of people are doing the manufacturing, how do you see that scenario? How do you see that all the things are taken care, function safety or thermal systems? And an additional things I want to ask is, in the initial phase of adoption, definitely we need to have importing the components and then assembling it here. At a later point of time, definitely we need to have our own capability to develop all these components. And so how do you see this scenario happening in two-wheeler and three-wheeler with the lot of players are there, and how are they going to take care of all this?
Yeah, sure. So before I address the key question of like the consolidation thing, but see, let's first understand the journey, what has happened in this industry. So typically, the EV which came into picture was more from a business perspective. So there were dealers who were, importing the vehicles, selling it in India. And why it was a hit? Because of the running cost. So exceptionally low running costs. The person, if he buys a vehicle, can drive it for full day or maybe more than that, 2 days, right, without incurring much money. So essentially, leaving out with some good level of money in hand, right? So which has actually started promoting the EV as a use case for two-wheeler, especially. Now, just imagine this person and the break even if the initial acquisition cost is slightly more, the break even is very high, very quick. So within a year or so, or maybe maximum 2 years, you are actually recovering the money what you are initially investing. So from there, some traction was there, at least from people started willing experimenting from ICE to EVs at that point of time. However, there were a lot of issues also what we have seen, right? So because it's not an engineered product, what we were using, it was just a kit we are importing, assembling here, and then giving to the customers, which was something which was a kind of a missing case when we talk about this industry. So there, I see that the startups started actually looking at this as a potential opportunity because the market is huge. The use case is there. Total cost of ownership is much better than the ICE, right? So startups saw this as an opportunity and they started, coming up with their product plans at that point of time. So if you look at least to start with, before even I go to the next thing. So a typical startup, how they will operate. So they will first try to solve a customer problem. Now the customer problem here is the cost of ownership, right? And then they will come up with some kind of proof of concept, then the market launch and scaling, and then the product maturity, which will happen. So from that perspective, I think startups, especially in the EV field, have grabbed this opportunity which was there and introduced a lot of products, what we can see on the roads. It was not the end because that made the things little boring because then what is the difference between, especially from a consumer perspective, between the ICE scooter and the EV scooter? So EV scooter has a lot more potential because we all know that it's in terms of pickup or the speed or operating, right, comfort. So people and startups considered offering some of the added value services, right? So for example, improve software, improve algorithm which will help the vehicle running properly. The screens which we see on the dashboard now, navigation systems, the keyless entry, the keyless start, all those things have started coming, and these are kind of received as a very valuable features in terms of a customer adoption, because consumer now sees this product not as a boring product which will just run on the roads, but also as a very good machine which will actually satisfy some of the needs what consumer will expect. So from that perspective, I think there was a huge transformation which has happened, and startups have definitely grabbed this opportunity. The only problem what we see right now is see, we are talking about two things. One is the price sensitive customers, and also one is who just believes in the value. So the price sensitive customers are still, I would say, are not addressed thoroughly, at least properly in terms of the market point of view. The value, people are actually willing to experiment. They want to spend money. They want to try out some new kind of setup, new kind of machines, right? So that is what is happening right now. And even if you look at the two-wheeler industry, we see the total industry which you were mentioning, sir. So 15 million units, right? So hardly the penetration so far has reached to 5% in the two-wheeler industry. But on the other end, if you look at the three-wheeler, it's almost 50%, I would say. So from that perspective also, so the trend is phenomenal. The improvement is there, adoption is there. Challenge is still there, are still lying, because now all these startups also need to work on establish themselves, because they are now competing with some established brands who are already there in the market since so many years. They know the system, they know how to manage the quality, how to manage other things. So one of the biggest challenge what startups has is establish themselves as a formidable player. And that will only come through kind of good product quality, which will actually help them building the trust with the consumers directly. Otherwise, the startups, whatever 45, 50, 100 certified startups which are there or who are selling these products will not be able to sell it much longer. Or maybe if they are selling, it will be in a very less volume, not like a big business, right? So that is one part, and also the companies also need to invest in themselves to keep a track and keep updating their technologies. Even in the battery technology, if you look at the EVs, the cells are changing. I mean, the technology is improving day by day, right? So we started from very low water per kg kind of chemistry, and now we are talking about high energy density packs, right? So all these transitions are happening. So nothing is common, unlike the conventional ICE engines, because once you develop the engine, it's there for long years. But here it's not the case. So battery is evolving, it's changing. Now we are talking about different technologies. From lithium ion, you're talking about sodium, you're talking about solid state batteries. All those things are happening. So it's also important for any new player or any new startup to actually also keep themselves updated with this kind of technology trend. So that is the other point, and also from a after sales perspective, also see customer will also talk about if there is some problem in the vehicle, where do I go? Will I be serviced properly, or will I be my concerns will be addressed properly or not? So superior network also is very important here in this case. How quickly you are able to reach out to the customer to solve their problems. Right. So those are some of the challenges what startups have right now in front of them. On top of it, we are talking about the supply chain things. So supply chain also, you have to have a very seamless and very stable supplies for your components. For example, especially the battery. So and we see already the battery prices fluctuating so much since past 2-3 years, right? So it dipped and then suddenly picked up. So the forecast is that it will dip, but let's see what will happen. So all these are very uncertain things which are happening. Now, based on these things, we cannot keep at least a very stable business case in mind. So we have to also adapt to all these situations. So that's where supply chain also plays very important role here. That how do I ensure that whatever I'm building is for long term? It's not only for 1 month or 2 months. And startups do have this kind of problem because if you don't have volume, you can't command all these conditions. But if you have volumes, yes, of course, you can drive a lot of things. So that remains a challenge in terms of for the startups always. So these are the major considerations, and I would say that with respect to consolidation, it's too early to say because the market size itself is too huge, and it will grow. The only thing is, if a startup or any company, not even startup, any company is able to adapt themselves to the need of the hour, which is like the product quality, keeping up the trends, also in mind of the consumers, what they want, what they actually need from this product. So all those things has to be kind of tracked properly. And I think the consolidation will happen definitely, but it's too early to comment what kind of consolidation we are expecting.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I think so. What you want to say is that the most of the innovation what has happened from the startup companies, mainly in terms of value-added services, etc. And when it comes to the core technology part of it in the component, be it that thermal systems or function safety systems, apparently they may not be able to scale it up, or maybe there can be some kind of a consolidation happening there.
Yes.
With respect to who can provide this kind of higher-end core technology. Talking about the two-part core technology here, and second thing is about. I think there they might struggle in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I would just, just to add to Dr. Philip's point, right? So, see, India has all the talent and all the things available. So, and people, fortunately, we are seeing all those trends now, right? People are working on building the technology by themselves. And you also mentioned, sir, so we have been the follower since, early automotive industry stage. But now we have a chance to, do something from our own. And that is, I think we are heading to also. We can see all this happening right now. And that's how this EV space becomes very exciting. The space itself is very exciting. The journey is very exciting.
So actually, we are always followers. My observation is that we are always followers when it comes to captive intensive technology, be it power plant or IC engine based. And Dr. Philip already mentioned we are going to have the software driven vehicles. Beyond electrification, if you look at connectivity, autonomous driven, it's all software going to dominate. And I think that is exactly the place where I think we have a very good chance to take the lead role.
Yes. And I also see the stars aligning now because, see, India was never a manufacturing destination, although we wanted to be made in India, but never we were taken seriously till about a year back. But suddenly, geopolitics is part of it, COVID is another side of it. But suddenly, in the last 1 year, we're seeing that there's a lot of push both inside and outside India to make India a manufacturing hub. So EV should take up this opportunity, EV industry rather, to take this opportunity and see how all this is put in to make us, one of those strong EV manufacturing, centers globally.
I think that way the COVID has come to rescue us in terms of only China doing all the manufacturing.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying.
China plus one policy is needed.
Exactly. We have a window of opportunity now, and we should really strike and make us the opportunity for ourselves.
I want to ask one more question. Nishit has already mentioned about this, that is with respect to the cost sensitive market. And basically you can see that all the two-wheeler electric two-wheelers are costly compared with a corresponding IC engine based vehicle. So how are you going to address this particular scenario in a cost sensitive market? What are the things that can be done and how this is getting addressed?
All right. So, I think there are a few things which we first of all need to understand what exactly consumer wants. Right. For example, if somebody wants to, just commute to office, which is very nearby, right? So there you don't need a very big battery pack. You need something which is quite optimized for his needs, consumer need. And vice versa also. For example, somebody may have to travel a lot. So you have to, find that kind of sweet spot between the offering and also what consumers are wanting. So of course, there is no one formula for addressing for everybody, but I think that sweet spot is what is needed to be discovered. And it's a very experimental thing. So you cannot, decide on some facts or some data that, okay, let's start with this kind of battery configuration. Right, but it will keep evolving. So all those things has to be kept in mind. But because battery is the biggest cost of this EV, we all know. It's unlike fuel, right? So in ICE, you have a fuel tank, but if you don't fill the fuel, then you're saving. I mean, you're not putting that much of money, right? But battery is there. I mean, whether you charge or not, it's there. You have incurred the cost. Right. So that's why it's important that the product what we are building for somebody has to actually align with the final need of the consumer. And that is very important to discover. And it's the discovery thing. It's not going to happen overnight or some analyzing some data. So this has to be discovered in a right way and right direction. So that is one way of addressing the cost part. Other is, of course, we talk about and I think we have discussed already about what we can do in India, especially with respect to manufacturing. So a lot of components we see till now also we are importing, and especially the cells, right? So the things will change if we start developing something on our own in India, especially. And we also see a lot of news and traction now that we find a lot of lithium reserves now, and all those things are happening. So it's very positive. Plus, there are a lot of technology advancements also. We are talking about the aluminum batteries. We are talking about the sodium ion batteries now. So everything will contribute to. It's very positive especially for India to contribute to and use this as an opportunity to develop something very quickly. And that is going to help us in lower the cost finally.
Okay. So you essentially mentioned the two parts. One is that the local manufacturing, again, we are coming into that particular area in terms of lowering the cost. The second thing, very interesting thing you mentioned is with respect to clearly specify what the customer want in terms of top speed or range, what you want, and exactly what is the requirement of the customer. Based on that, you provide it so that your battery size can be optimized and the cost can be very valid points. Just want to ask one more question, and the government has given the go ahead to buy the vehicle without battery, and then you can go for a battery on a leasing mode. That means the cost of the battery is coming in the variable cost and not on the capital. So is that really working? Or we are not seeing so many people taking advantage of it. What do you see is because that the total cost of ownership you can keep under control with this scheme.
Yeah.
It is not seen to be getting implemented. What's your view on this?
Okay, so I would say it's a very mixed view right now. So we are seeing some of the people who are, very bringing all this Gogoro. I mean, recently has come switch, and our Sun Mobility is there, right? I mean, technology-wise, it is there. So it's not that something is missing out. The thing is how we are able to capitalize it. So, for example, in this case, even though I buy this scooter, for example, or any product, two-wheeler or three-wheeler, but what is the assurance that whenever I go to this kind of swap station, I'll get the batteries, and that too fully charged, right? So it's also combined with the service level what we can offer from the other side, the leasing model or the battery also, how many batteries are there, which can actually cater to all these kind of things. So it has to then look at in a very total view. So it's not only about me who is buying the product directly, but it's also about the availability of the other services. So if I don't have that, then I lose the trust. So if I'm not able to cater to the customer who is coming to my swap station and get the batteries replaced, then I'm not building that kind of trust, and then the consumer will probably drive away from this kind of arrangement later on. Right. So these things needs to be very carefully balanced, and I mean, keeping the consumer interest in mind, of course, always. That is something which needs to be built on. So even though the model is there, I would rather say it's a kind of a business model which is there, but how effectively it is being used as a overall theme is something which we still have to see.
Right.
Okay. Philip, want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, swap model has a kind of a specific use cases which actually would be beneficial, but at the end of the day, somebody has to foot the bill of the extra batteries you have in the system, the charging stations you put up, the maintenance of the charging stations, the employees who man the stations, and the rent you require to keep those stations on the roadsides. So somebody has to foot the bill, and finally it's all going as to be footed by the customer, where she would pay as rupees per kilowatt hour. So if you put all those costs into perspective, there are not very, but there are some use cases where that would actually make sense, but not the majority. So it would coexist with the typical, the more conventional model of owning the battery, owning the vehicle, and then driving the vehicle and selling it at resale value. It will coexist with that, but it won't take over the entire EV market. That's for sure.
Okay, so most of the topic, whatever we discussed on two-wheeler, is mostly applicable to three-wheeler as well also. But one additional question on three-wheeler is, we have seen that about 60 to 70% of the vehicle coming on the road newly are electrified. Got already a lot of feedback from the customer, and then in general, they feel happy on many aspects. What is your take here actually? What are all the positive things the end customer is seeing? What are still their concerns? And how is the rest of the electrification for the three-wheeler is going to be?
Yeah, it's very interesting actually, because COVID, of course, had a big impact on that. The industry was about 1 million vehicles, or just about touching that, before we went into COVID. And the public transportation collapsed. Small vehicles where people huddled together, that mode of transportation collapsed in COVID. The demand went to, I guess, 250,000 in that year of COVID. It's coming back up. But as it coming back up, the mix is completely changed. I mean, what used to be a 2%, 3% penetration of EVs, now it's looking at 25 to 50% in different markets. That's purely because it's affordability of operation. I mean, basically total cost of ownership. Before COVID, CNG was priced at about half to 60% of the petrol price. And so there was a lot of incentive to own a CNG in three-wheeler, which probably is a marginally more expensive than petrol and still make a living out of it. Whereas today, CNG is at par with petrol, and whatever arbitrage we had for CNG as a fuel is no longer there. And with the customers being expected to pay a significantly more price for the BS6 engines, the attractiveness of EVs, that the price differential between EV and the IC engine is much lower now. In fact, my own studies while I was doing this early EV research and development, my own study was that 2020 would be the time when you would see the price gap narrowing between IC engines and three-wheelers, and that's where we are right now. So the gap is not much. The cost of ownership is a different league altogether, and the customers are really getting the benefit of that low cost of ownership because of the electric vehicles. The only and the other side is also an important factor is that how the women actually can come into this space now. See, one thing is that we had a major revolution in Indian cities, a lot of Indian cities where the permit was cancelled. So what used to be a coterie of people who used to share the permit, sell the permits back and forth with a small group of politically connected people and that group of unions, that is come out now, and now anybody can actually buy an electric three-wheeler and start a living. So a lot of women who are either single mothers or who are actually trying to support their family with additional income, they are taking this up, and it is much easier for them to drive an electric three-wheeler compared to an IC engine, with the vibrations and the gear shift and whatnot. And Suman, our CEO used to joke to us, sorry, you guys are actually suffering because you don't have housemates now anymore. That's because a lot of housemates are actually taken up driving these trios and whatnot, and actually getting their kids to school. And so it's generationally, you will continue to get less and less housemates now. So this societal change is also contributing to this. And I'm sure I'm very proud of it because we are actually making the change happen. But it's important that these trends, which of course COVID made an important contribution to it, are actually changing the scenario here. So we will get back to 1 million vehicles eventually in the market, but that 1 million vehicles would be majority be electric the way we see it now.
Very interesting point. Okay. So let us move to passenger car. Actually, so the question is again to Dr. Philip. Actually, Mahindra was the early entrant to four-wheeler with the acquisition of Reva. So just would like to know what was your journey with respect to the passenger car segment, how it is progressing. So would like to know from you.
Yeah, I mean, passenger car segments, finally, passenger car is a premium good in India. So obviously, you would always have a limited number of people owning a car. It would probably grow a little bit more than what we are now. But again, my own understanding is that India cannot afford to have more than 22 or 23 people cars per 1,000 population. Because our infrastructure doesn't support it, our overall economics doesn't support it. So we'll continue to be in that. Ownership probably wouldn't go much more than that, and the increased mobility would probably come by better public transport or two-wheelers, that kind of from modes. But within the passenger car, yes, again, as I said, 2022 was one of those was the year wherein you would see price parity coming in. And in certain models, the price parity between diesel and electric is very close. It's not zero, but it's very close. So you would see a lot of interest in EVs today. And with Nexon and now with XUV400 in the market, and of course we have MG and a couple of other models also in the market, there is a minimum seeding number of customers are already on board. And our own research, our own experience tell that once you make a switch from ICE vehicle to an EV, very few people actually switch back. So those customers, when they buy, a lot of our Reva customers, when they buy out, they probably would look for a new EV, not another diesel or petrol vehicle. So the revolution started now. The numbers are actually picking up. We had more than 30,000 bookings for XUV400. Nexon is already 30 or 40,000 already in the market. And the growth is phenomenal. I mean, of course, even the premium vehicles, I mean, whether it's Mercedes or Audi or Jaguar, the pickup of electric is very, very strong. And this would continue. Of course, it won't be the story of two-wheelers and three-wheelers. We would, I don't know, to hazard, I guess, we will never be the majority in the next 5 or 6 years' time, but the growth will continue.
Okay. So in addition, the government is also not supporting private ownership for the.
There's a reason to that. I mean, that's very valid reason also. I mean, this is what, see, at the end of the day, who can afford a car? This is what I talked about the first statement about car being a premium product in India. Who can afford a car? Less than 2% of population actually afford a car. And they are in the highest income bracket, what we call SEC-A or SEC-B customer. How do government justify subsidizing 1.5 lakh for a customer who can afford to buy a 10-15 lakh car, whereas government has still so much more pressing problems of climate change mitigation, floods, and farmers' failure. I mean, the crop failures, natural calamities. I mean, finally, how can government balance between the 98% of the people's needs of basic survivability and livelihood against the 2% people's need for a better greener mobility? Is very difficult. So that's the reason why government consciously is trying to promote subsidies for buses, three-wheelers, and the commercial vehicle passenger cars, the taxis, and of course the two-wheeler, because that is catering to the bottom of the pyramid population. So it's very logical, although we at the outset it seems unfair. But from the government's point of view, it's logical that they support public transport or public transport vehicles for government subsidies, because finally it's taxpayers' money.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, Nishit, one question actually related to commercial vehicle. Actually, it was told that IC engine is likely to continue in the commercial vehicle segment. That was the expectation. So now we can see that there is a lot of trend going. Okay, how we can do the electrification for a commercial vehicle. Buses, you can see that there is already focus for India government. So now how the things are changing in that particular segment related to various technology involved in going for alternative vehicle fuels, including electrification in the commercial vehicle segment.
Yeah. So now things are a little different and interesting also when we talk about the commercial vehicles. So unlike two-wheelers or three-wheelers, or to some extent four-wheeler also, where we know that okay, BEVs are there. There is no doubt about it, and the other technologies probably will be expensive or not work also. In case of commercial vehicles, the things are very, very different. Because when you talk about the pure BEV, see in commercial vehicles, okay, let us split it in two different segments. First of all, the bus and the trucks, right? So we'll talk about it in a different way. So if we only talk about the trucks, so what is more important for a transporter? It's a payload, right? So how much weight it can carry, how much goods it can transport to one location to other location. Now, in case of battery electric vehicles, we are talking about the batteries, which has a carrying substantial weight, right? So I was kind of going through one article where it was mentioned that 1 liter of diesel is equivalent to 10 kilowatt of energy, which means if we convert into some kind of battery pack, the weight what it is carrying, it's very, very different. It's almost 10 times what we need to carry this. right? And if I keep adding this weight in the vehicle, my payload is getting impacted. So which means the BEVs do, and we don't know whether the BEVs will make sense for long. And plus, I mean, to add the complexities, it's also about the charging infrastructure, what is there in the field. We see that the charging infrastructure is yet to be developed. It's not so adequately available everywhere on all the highways. It's yet to be developed. It's yet to come. So when we talk about commercial vehicles, it's not only the product itself, but it's also the complete ecosystem what we need to focus on. And if that ecosystem is not there, I mean, you cannot bet on one technology which will work. Which means we have to work in both the directions. So one is the product side of it, and one is the ecosystem side. Right. So making sure that the charging infrastructure is there for these people, because these people do a intercity travel. It's not the intercity or the limited commute what they do, right? So from that perspective, things are very, very different in case of commercial vehicle. And that's where we keep hearing that, okay, hydrogen is coming up as a very, very promising technology, which will actually may address all this long haul kind of usage. So there you just fill the tank once, and then you can go to some 4 and 5 kilometers in one go, and then you refuel, which is fine. Now the challenge is the current hydrogen technology, what is available right now, and it's very expensive. It's not, the TCO doesn't make any sense unless this cost is kind of brought down. Right. So even the TCO point of view, BEV is better, but it's not contributing into my payload kind of thing. So here's the complexity. Now the hydrogen side, it is making, it's very costly, so I cannot use it in my vehicle. So in all these things, what we are now seeing is at least some of the government initiatives and some encouragement which is there in the industry. In terms of like getting this green hydrogen, and there is a very dedicated program which is National Hydrogen Mission, right? That has come up, and also for BEVs we are talking about some green corridors. So there are expressways which will be green. 16 expressways has been identified for setting up a proper, green or charging infrastructure has to be there in those expressways. So this has to go hand in hand with the product development. And once everything is kind of looked at in a very holistic view, then we see that, okay, now one fuel or one technology can actually make sense for future. But something which is right now, it's very confusing, and it's a very cocktail kind of technology which are coming up. So in some application, you will see batteries, BEVs are actually making sense. Some you will see the hydrogen will make sense, and some the diesel will continue as it is. So all these things are happening, and commercial way, that's where the commercial space is very different and very complex.
So
I
thanks
think
for it. And one question. Yeah, please. You're saying something.
No, so that was the thing. So and from a OEM perspective, it's also very complex now. So where do I focus? Shall I focus on all the technologies, or shall I focus on one particular technology? So it's happening, and I would say that it will take some more time to mature the things a bit.
So a lot of questions are still remaining, but actually we also want to look at the time, as well as we want to give opportunity for the audience also to ask questions. So rest of the topic I'll just summarize into maybe 1 or 2 questions. One is on charging infrastructure, and likewise, now we see that it is 80% approximately two-wheeler, and then there is a lot of city driving happening inside of two-wheeler as well as in four-wheeler. So your charging infrastructure also need to be meeting with this kind of requirement, and mostly there can be more of home charging and charging from office or maybe from complex. I mean, what kind of scenario is developing over there in terms of setting up of this kind of charging infrastructure to meet our specific requirements for there?
Yeah, I mean, the scenario is quite different between a large vehicle and a small vehicle. If you look at the two-wheeler customers, a lot of them use the electric two-wheelers like mobiles. They don't see them much different from the mobile vehicle, especially it's all connected first. So they're quite used to charging it at night and then getting in the morning and then driving the vehicle away. So most of the people would actually rely on that. Of course, there are a minority of people who would like to have public charging infrastructure. When it comes to three-wheelers, today, even though they want it, it doesn't exist. So they have found ingenious ways of extracting that charging opportunity from all around the place. For example, electric three-wheeler customers, they would opportunistically go to a hotel and have their lunch there, and at the same time get the vehicle charged there. And that gets rolled into their hotel bills or the small premium they pay or whatever it is. They find their way out. So at the current scale, it's probably not a problem. But yeah, when I say a million three-wheelers electric in the market, I mean, when you look at 50% of two-wheelers to be transformed to electric, that's where, yeah, we will not reach there without a better public charging infrastructure. At the level of two and three-wheelers, you would really need those 16 amps charging point hours of charging for a typical two or three-wheeler product. For passenger cars, it's more detailed or more intricate, because passenger cars go all around the place. So obviously, a person who's deciding to buy an electric car, although she drives it every day for an office to home, like 20-25 kilometers a day, she would really want that opportunity to drive down to, say, Mumbai to Pune or Bangalore to Chennai over the weekend or whatever it is. And that becomes an impediment to buying a car unless there are highway infrastructure not available for charging. And hopefully those infrastructure should work. I mean, that's the other part. So yes, for a better adoption of electric cars, we would need more elaborate charging stations. Again, coming back to buses, because buses, they are different depots for charging. I think it's much easier for them to organize, city buses, organize charging infrastructure as part of the tender, which is generally what's happening now. Again, for trucks, it becomes the most difficult thing, as Nishit explained earlier. That's where we need megawatt chargers. We probably would need multiple of them. And when you want megawatt chargers at a truck point, you need to pull 22 kV lines there to provide that kind of power for charging those big trucks. So that's where things get really complicated for charging infrastructure. But as I said, today there are business models where charging stations are nominally profitable or somewhat profitable. So we are seeing a growth, and pretty soon, as the more electric vehicles come in, you would see more of those charging stations become really profitable, and then you would see those positive cycle again starting probably in a year's time or 2 years' time. So I'm not really bothered. I'm not really worried, but just that I'm waiting for these to pick up pace by themselves.
So coming to the last question is related to the skill development. I think that is one of the key requirements. So during the discussion, we mentioned about there is a need for locally designing the environment-friendly components, component integration, and overall system engineering activities. So a lot of skills are required with respect to getting into the electric vehicles. And you already mentioned about the software-driven vehicles are going to be the key for the future. And these are all the areas where we can take the lead role. So the skill requirement for the local component development and immediate requirements. And second thing, skill requirement for taking the lead role. So how do you see this? And then what are the things which you foresee that other things can come up in this area?
Again, I think we have to focus on system engineering at the early engineer career level, or probably we should introduce that in the engineering colleges. When I say system, I look at 6 dimensions of a system, which is a mechanical, which probably we are quite well off. Electrical, which includes electric power transfer and the voltages and currents. Signal, which comes to how the signals are defined, the CAN signal topology, the CAN signal protocols. Control, which is the control algorithms and software, which actually goes in. Heat transfer, which goes into the cooling system design and the thermal optimization, and the mass transfer, which along with the cooling system, it's also about how the physical mass is transferred or the fuel is transferred across systems. So unless an engineer is capable of conceptualizing system across all these 6 dimensions, the job isn't done. So we want less of electrical engineers and mechanical engineers from now on. We want more engineers. We want power electronics engineers and mechatronics engineers. So why power electronics? Because they need to blend power electrical system to electronics to software. And even mechatronics engineers who can blend mechanical systems to mechanical control to software which controls the mechanical systems. So these are the two crop of engineers which would be needed now to lead the EV revolution in India. And of course, there are master's courses, but they also need to be supported by professional courses or continuing learning programs. Nishit?
Yeah, I mean, very nicely put. And if I may add one more field, which is related to the energy. So I think
Okay.
so not only the vehicle side, but also as an ecosystem side, if we are also able to bring some innovative solutions, which will help us in keeping this energy thing in control and properly distributed, so that transmission losses are not much. And we are talking about the renewables, and we are talking about the green energy basically. So that will make the picture complete. So once we have both the things together and operating at a very seamless way, we'll achieve what the end objective is in terms of the electrification, right? So we are talking about some CO2 reduction. We are talking about a very green environment kind of thing. So all those things will only be achieved if we have everything together. Of course, people will work independently, but also interdependently, I would say.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
So very good point, Nishant. Basically, we have to have the EV charging from the renewable energy sources ultimately, and which is something like decentralized power stations like smart grid, and that things has to come up. I think time being, I mean, there is no end to it. We can keep on discussing. So let us give some opportunity for the audience to ask few questions. So Venkatesh, do you have that piece from the audience?
Hi, sir. You should be able to access the sheet. So do you want me to share the screen?
1 minute. I am just trying to look at that sheet. Or you can just share it, that question. 1 minute. I am trying to. Yeah, so we'll go one by one. I'm able to see. So this question is from Remya, and question is to Nishit. So how do you see India progressing in electric segment, especially after FAME 2 subsidy cut?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and also just want to add. See, of course, the government subsidies. We should keep in mind that government subsidies, whatever we get, those are not going to be permanent. Those has to be temporary. So, and that thought has to be there with all the OEMs and all the stakeholders who are developing any solution. Subsidies are temporary, just to give some initial push or some initial momentum in this technology space. The idea is that at least whatever we design or whatever we innovate, whatever solutions we're talking about, actually should be independent of the subsidies. Right. So even though we may see a slight dip, maybe in terms of sales, but if the product offering is really superior, or if you see some of the savings which are there, I don't see the trend is going to go in a negative direction. It will probably become stable at point of time when the subsidy is cut, and probably it will grow further. So I don't see it is going downward for sure, but at least momentarily we can see some kind of changes, but it is definitely going to grow because that is the direction what we
have. Philip, want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I guess that's the same thing, because we have to have a strategy as OEMs to have a plan where if once the subsidy ends, how we would optimize the cost of components. Of course, that all comes from localization. I mean, that's what government is also pushing, right? So government is trying to guide the industry in the direction where we are self-reliant, and make sure that even when they lift the subsidy, remove the subsidies, there is enough momentum in the market, there is enough pull in the market that these vehicles would sell by themselves by their merits and by their features rather than by the cost difference.
Yeah, exactly. So the next question is Joshua, and the question is to Mr. Nishit. So what about electrification of heavy equipment like large trucks? How feasible it is to effectively make a large truck electrified equivalent to an IC engine truck?
Okay, so it has two contents. One is how easy it is to make the trucks electrified, right, and whether it's viable or not. Right. So I think, see, from a technology perspective, technology is available. And it's just that how we engineer it well. I think it takes system engineering word I would like to use here. If we do it well here, I think it's not so complex, to be honest. The only thing what we need to take care is the end application. Like as I said, that if you're talking about the long haul or the intercity kind of movement, then probably it will not make sense immediately to electrify and use it, unless we have a right infrastructure available. But if you're talking about some local application or some captive use, then probably yes. So from a performance perspective, ICE and EV, if you look at, EV is much better than ICE for sure. And there is no doubt about it. The only constant what we have in EVs is the range anxiety what everybody carries. And that is something needs to be addressed. So again, depending on the application, this can be taken care of. And application wise, we can decide whether the EV is suitable or not.
Absolutely.
So next question is from Swapnil Kumar, and the query is to both Dr. Philip and Mr. Jain. So recently, IIT Kanpur challenged that EV is less environment friendly as compared to conventional vehicle, and hybrid electric vehicle will be more environment friendly as compared to it. Yeah.
See, I have done some study on this myself because I've been in this industry for almost 25 years. I think it's all, you can get the result which you want depending on the assumptions you make. That's all it is. I mean, I understood how the study was funded, and I don't want to comment on that. But see, if you look at India itself as a country, there are several regions where electricity is coming from carbon neutral sources. For example, Jain and Himachal has about 75 to 80% of electricity coming from hydro. Kerala is another market where I think 20 to 30%, oh sorry, other way around, 70 to 80% is coming from hydroelectric. Bihar, Bengal, 90% is coming from coal. So there are different regions where these mix is different. Now, so obviously a lot of things about the life cycle energy consumption and the life cycle carbon dioxide consumption would vary within these regions. So India is not a homogeneous market, first of all. Although we can say 75% of electricity comes from India is from coal. So definitely that's the reason why the central government also had a plan to have a very intensive electrification in Himachal Pradesh at the Kulu Manali route, those kind of Himalayan regions. So there are places in India, there are markets in India in which EV definitely contributes significant reduction in carbon dioxide. And more than that, there is industrial pollution as well. For example, NOx and hydrocarbon. Even if we say we are using coal energy to produce electricity to make electric vehicles, the net emissions of harmful gases from the coal power plants are actually less than the individual car emissions of diesel and petrol, which is running in the road, especially when in low speeds and in highly congested traffic. So if you put these things in perspective, definitely electric vehicle is beneficial for the market. And what we should also remember is that there is no way we can use IC engine from renewable sources of energy. You cannot run an IC engine from renewable source of energy unless you go for biofuel, and then you have all the conundrums of food versus fuel and whatnot. Hydrogen definitely is an option when it comes to fuel cells. You can responsibly use hydrogen for fuel cells. But between hydrogen and electric, they form the platform for mass adoption of renewable transportation solutions. So that's where the thing cannot go back. We cannot go back from EV, we cannot go back from hydrogen, because they are our pathway for sustainable transportation. It may not be today, but we will reach there somehow. So there's no change in that.
Okay. So, Nishit, want to add anything to this?
No, I think I second Dr. Philip's view. You see, it's how you interpret the report. See, if you look at the hybrid, it's a combination of electric and ICE, right? So we can have different perspective. That's fine. But the end goal is that, see, finally, how we are using the complete thing, and the more eco-friendly things we are using in any kind of solution, the better it is for the environment. So talking about the renewable fuel, for example, I mean that is a way forward. For talking about the hydrogen fuel cells, for example, or the electric, getting the energy from the renewable source is going to solve a lot of things.
Yeah.
Exactly. This particular study, first of all, you have to tell how much amount of percentage of renewable energy source is considered in the energy calculations. So that varies. For India, it is currently 70% is coming from the thermal. So the energy, if you use this 70% energy coming from thermal sources for the electric vehicle charging, then definitely the advantages will be limited. So ultimately, you need to go for the renewable energy sources, and then you need to look at this how it is.
Yeah.
So query from Ragesh to both of you. If you can share what are some of the interesting advances happening in your respective firms in this space. So I assume that in this space you mean in the EV space. What are the interesting advances happening in your respective firms? That is with Mahindra and Daimler.
So I think Mahindra, you already probably would have seen the way we have been pushing our Born EV agenda in terms of the products which are coming in the next starting 2024. So our organization is totally committed to electric vehicle development, and that is definitely one of the mainstream programs for us now. From the last mile mobility point of view, also, of course, the three-wheeler industry is picking up, and we will definitely have a lot more exciting products, what I call livelihood products. See, Mahindra, we also make lifestyle vehicles, but we also make livelihood vehicles. Equally important in terms of TCO, equally important of reliability. They will be making sure that whoever buys those vehicles will actually gain a decent, in fact, a good livelihood from those vehicles, which can support their families and make India a better place. So that will continue to happen for the last mile mobility. At the same time, exciting products from lifestyle products from Born EV family as well.
So next query is, so anything from Nishit?
Yeah, so from Daimler, or I would say Bharat Benz perspective, because you're talking about India now. So see, we are taking a very holistic view. As I mentioned, commercial vehicles is a very different product, and it's very complex. You cannot bet on one technology for sure. So we are considering a very holistic view, and that's where we are running also some internal programs, which will actually help us in taking the right strategy and direction later on. But I mean, we cannot, of course, eliminate one of the technology for sure. So for us, it's like a complete view that, okay, how the things are shaping up, how the industry is kind of adapting to these kind of things. And also one very challenging part in this commercial space is the initial cost of acquisition. Right. So if that remains high, then how many customers will be willing to convert to this kind of? So we are working in all the directions so that the product what we offer becomes very, very affordable also to the consumers, and also solve their need basically.
Right.
Okay. So query from Amit, and the question is to Mr. Nishit. So large OEMs with the global supply chains, how do they perceive India in the EV value chain? In which areas does India score higher than other countries or market? So,
sorry, can you repeat the last? I missed that last line.
Yeah, the last line is, in which area does India scores higher than other countries or market?
Okay. So see, so score-wise, there is no doubt that we have the right talent, we have the right market, and we have the right policy framework. What is there in India? And there is a very huge focus. I mean, I've not seen this kind of focus anywhere else. So people still talk about, very low volumes of penetration in other countries. But when you talk about India, India is very bullish about the future technology, and that gives a very good opportunity for all of us, to leverage. And I think that's what we discussed in the initial session of what we are having in this chat. We have all the opportunities available to leverage on. It's just that how do we leverage is the question. And I think the focus is there for sure. That's where India is scoring. And just to additionally add, Indian engineers are actually supporting the global technologies. So from India, operating from India and Indian centers, they are actually supporting the global companies, right? So that's where we have that kind of that's where the India scores really well. Where it does not score well is basically the supply chain, because still we are depending, like oil, we are depending on external sources for the cells, also for the batteries also. Similarly, some of the technologies probably we have to invest more and we have to develop more. So that's where we are still lacking, but I think we can catch up very quickly, and with all kind of focus what we have in industry.
That's great. So, question from Prashant to Dr. Philip. How do you see the progress of charging infrastructure development in India, and what challenges need to be addressed to accelerate its growth?
Yeah, I mean, I hinted that in the earlier discussion. Yeah, I mean, there is, as I said, there's a need to have more what you call low power charging centers all over India. I mean, typically a 16 amps charging point for a lot of these 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. And we need a highway charging infrastructure for 4-wheelers to be meaningful as a regular vehicle, not as a second car in their houses. And the challenges are there in terms of pulling the cables to the charging points where you can actually deliver those power. So obviously, as I said, we may need more transformers to distribute this power. You need more maybe digging of these cables and laying these cables in certain city areas to actually bring up these charging centers in larger numbers. But these are much less of a infrastructure questions compared to, say, having a nationwide CNG infrastructure. So the scale of the problem is big, but it's not as big as the alternatives which we have for clean transportation. And as I said earlier, the business is making sense for a lot of charge point operators, a lot of charging fleet or charging system, businesses. So as more and more of them actually start making business, we'll have more and more of them entering and expanding their business, and then you would see those positive cycles starting now. I think we have the necessary incentives, both from government as well as from businesses, to be in place now, and you would see a catalytic increase of a number of these charging points all over the country pretty soon.
Okay. So Kunal is asking Mr. Nishit. So Daimler has been a leader in automotive innovations. How is the company leveraging its expertise and resources to drive the adoption of electric commercial vehicles in India?
Yeah, so see, Bharat-Benz, and I keep using this word Bharat-Benz because we are talking about Indian customers now. From a technology perspective, our global centers have their respective technologies. But again, I think this point was mentioned, touched about by Dr. Phillips also. See, a lot of technologies are developed abroad and kind of brought in India to use as it is in India. And I think that is not going to work easily. What we really need is some kind of dedicated technology developed for Indian products and for Indian kind of market, right? So that's where the direction is, and I think we are also aligned to that vision. That's something we develop here, and which is basically for our customers, right? So that is something we are working on, and that is going to our pathways also. So Bharat-Benz remains we are very proud of this brand. So and we'll still continue, and of course we'll keep leveraging on the global expertise what we have, because we are a group. But of course the focus is on the Indian customers.
So Kumar to Dr. Philip. So what is the scope of PHEV in future? It is not better completely rely on BEV. At the same time, we need to double the generation of electricity to cater EV.
Well, we don't need to double the electricity for that matter, especially if you have a fuel cell to support or hydrogen infrastructure to support that. And that probably is going to the mix anyway. So I'm not worried about EVs having a stress on the grids that it will not be viable. But when it comes to PHEV, the problem is that PHEV combines too many expensive systems on board the vehicle. And that becomes extremely unaffordable for most customers, actually. And then finally, for a person going point A to point B, PHEV increases the cost tremendously. So, either it is petrol or electric. That's where generally the market would move. PHEVs would be even more expensive than diesels, and once they are out of the EV mode of operation, the fuel economy is not much better than an IC engine vehicle. So you really don't get a huge improvement in terms of overall operating costs. There are PHEV products in the market today, and I'm sure they are successful, but they will not be a mass market phenomena because they become too expensive today. And EVs with their continuously reducing price points would eventually make them irrelevant.
So I just would like to add one point, actually, what you emphasized. The availability of electricity is not going to be the big problem with respect to the EV, because actually we have enough energy that can come from solar. But only challenge over there is that, okay, you don't have solar power coming during night, so you need to have energy storage. So energy topic has to be. So Nishit also mentioned this to focus on the energy aspects in terms of.
But even that also, we get hung up in looking at large grid storage of lithium ions.
Yeah.
But we don't need that. India already has this very strong energy storage infrastructure in terms of pumped storage.
Yeah.
I mean, that is 83% efficient. It's not much different than a lead acid battery, right? So we expand pump storage in wherever those are feasible and connect them to a very efficient grid distribution network. Probably we will have a very efficient, long-lasting storage systems anyway. Yeah. It's not as difficult as we think.
Yeah. So I think the summary here is that actually we do not have much challenge in terms of availability of electricity, and there are solutions. The only thing is the EV adoption is also happening at a reasonable pace. So I think the electricity from solar and energy storage things, that technology also will evolve during that time.
Absolutely.
Not that we are converting everything into EV in 1 year or 2 years. It is evolving. So the technology related to energy storage as well as the solar, everything that also is evolving at the equal pace. So that won't be a concern. I think that's the main point from here. Okay, so Niranjana is asking one question to both of you. As the automotive industry continues to evolve, what opportunity do you see for collaboration between OEMs and startup in the electric vehicle ecosystem?
That's very difficult because the way it is now, OEMs and startups are competing with each other. There are startups in the tier 1 area, but unfortunately, automotive is a very tough market. I mean, as I told you, the amount of reliable requirements and the amount of testing requirements for getting a component safely in the customer's hand are actually quite difficult. And being an automotive veteran, I've seen many difficult times wherein we need to test the component extensively to make it useful or reliable in the customer's hands. So startups can bring in new ideas, new perspectives in terms of new designs, but we will still need a very stable tier 1 or a tier one like organization to bring the testing robustness and the overall production maturity into the marketplace. So it's very difficult. I mean, unfortunately, automotive industry is a very difficult manufacturing industry.
Yeah. Earlier, we have seen that a lot of startups coming with a lot of innovations in terms of value-added services. But when it comes to the core part of
no, but there are success stories. We have seen Ather. I mean, a very good example of how they actually struggled through that and now came to a very stable manufacturing. So I really respect those startups who have put that effort and come out on top of it. But it is very difficult. They always be an exception.
Exactly. So Ether has a lot of backup from academy as well, IIT Madras on various aspects of technology. I think that is one exception where that startup company has gone along with academia in terms of many core technologies. So not many startups may be falling in that category. Okay, so question from Shashi Kumar to both of you. How are companies handling consumer adoption challenges, especially in EV space? What is this PV?
Sorry?
I think passenger vehicle, sir.
Passenger vehicle. Okay, fine. So how are companies handling consumer adoption challenges, especially in PC, passenger cars?
Nishit, you want to go first? I mean...
Okay, I'll let me attempt that. See, I would say companies are not very aggressively trying to address right now, especially when you talk about the passenger car space, right? However, yeah, we see that, okay, there are trends being set up and there are companies who are actually offering such kind of, products to the customer. But still their core business remains the other one, the ICE, right? So they're not forgetting or they're not neglecting the other business, which of course remains their mainstream thing. However, to be technology ready or at least to provide some excitement in different kind of products. So that is something which companies are pursuing right now. And we can see that, right? So I think companies are still experimenting what a consumer really wants. Is the consumer is really interested in getting the pure EV or whatever? I mean, what kind of features it is expecting or what kind of challenges the consumer is foreseeing. So it's still in a experimenting phase, I would say. I think, but it will be solved very soon. Should be there. Yeah, but I would say it's still in an experimental phase. As I said, like if you look at the passenger cars penetration with respect to the overall market, it's hardly not even 1%. It's even less than that. Right, and if you look at the trend also, it's pretty stable. It's not that it's growing and picking up very, very rapidly. So I think it's just some evaluation which is happening, experimentation which is happening to understand the consumer behavior much more. And whenever there is a right opportunity, there is a right time, I think the companies will pitch in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, finally, customer sees that as a product. If the product makes sense, the customer would buy. And all the OEM can do is to present the features of the product and see how the features of the product actually make sense to the customer's use case, which is what Mahindra or any OEM is doing. And they will continue to do that. More and more customers would eventually adopt EVs because they would see that EV making sense to their kind of use cases. And it would grow by itself.
Okay, so that's the end of queries from the audience. So I would like to conclude. Actually, we divided the vehicle into different segments: two-wheeler, three-wheeler. So then we have the passenger car and then the commercial vehicles. So in each of these categories, so we have seen what are our challenges and opportunities. So the challenge is going to be in terms of two-wheeler, three-wheeler, etc. is all about getting the component which is in line with the environment and other conditions in India, so developed locally. So maybe I think we'll continue to do the importing of the cell, but the battery pack and electrical machine, for example, we want to go for permanent magnet-less electrical machines. So those kind of things which is very specific to India, this is the place where we need to have the local manufacturing, local design and manufacturing, both of the things. And definitely we should go ahead without the government support at some point of time, without so naturally additional cost factor will come into picture. So, but in general, we have seen that, okay, we have sufficient talent pool and the leaderships and existing in our country. So definitely these are all the things which is definitely going to happen. And the second topic we wanted to have is, so which areas we can take the leadership role. It is already happening, and then we have a very large talent pool available. It's only a question of a little bit, Dr. Philip mentioned about practical oriented training starting from the college itself and more of theoretical stuff. So we need to have that kind of things getting at the college level itself, where people think practically. So not about the theoretical topics, what they are learning over there, maybe introduction of topic like system engineering. And Dr. Philip also mentioned about the lack of failure modes. I mean, the thinking from the failure angle in the academy. I think these kind of things need to be introduced over there. And then we have to see that how this particular talent pool can come over there. And then in addition to this, all this, he also mentioned about the software-driven vehicles. I think that is a place where going beyond electrified vehicle, or even beyond that, it is going to be a software-driven vehicle, where definitely India can take the lead role. I think this is how I would like to summarize. I just want to see Dr. Philip and Mr. Nishit can add to this.
I think you summarized well, Pradeep. I have nothing to add. And so far, at the end of the day, finally, as a nation, we have to stand by ourselves, and our future, we have to make it ourselves. Of course, we will be dependent. We will have some collaboration with other nations, but the final delivery has to be from us, and we need to train our people, our engineers, to be ready for that.
So, Nishit.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, so that's the thing. So I think the need is that we remain positive and also bring some kind of innovation. Not only, I mean, we should not only talk about the EV as a core, but also as a product. So we bring a lot of innovation, and we have that kind of talent pool available, and we have that opportunity also to tie up the things together and offer some better product. And by the way, I'm not only talking about the India, and India can deliver. And I think this point was also touched in the beginning, that we can be an export hub also, especially to the countries where the requirements are similar, or where and for example, the emerging countries, for example, right? So enough opportunities are there. We just need to remain very positive, back ourselves, and also contribute to all the innovations what we anyways keep doing. So that is something I would relate to it. That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Nishit. So let's conclude. Thank you a lot. It was really nice to have this discussion with both of you, Dr. Philip and Nishit. Thank you a lot from my side.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pradeep. Thanks, and it was very insightful for me also. By the way.
A lot of new information. Thanks a lot. So now over to Manish. Manish, you're there?
I guess Manish, you're mute.
Manish or Venkat?
Manish, you are on mute.
Manish?
You should be able to unmute now. Check once.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.
Quite a few takeaways for me also. Very importantly, what the takeaway I have chosen is we don't require mechanical engineers or electrical engineers. We require specialized people, powertrain engineers, battery management professionals. We require people who can do specialized job, or e-architecture guys who can visualize things, use the simulation and design things for the future. Great discussions. Thank you so much, Dr. Philip. Thank you so much, Nishit. It was a great learning for me, and I'm sure for each and every listener, audience today. It was good quality questions, also queries which were raised today. Very happy. I'll request Dr. Philip Nishit, if you wish to, you can excuse yourself to the audience. I'll take them through. I'll take another 1 minute or two to introduce them to skilling. I'm sure you both know about skilling a lot. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge today with all of us. Good evening to both of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Manish.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Pradeep.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Dr. Philip. Thanks, Pradeep.
Thanks, Nishit. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
With Pradeep sir, we wouldn't have got a better moderator to handle and ask the right kind of questions. Thank you so much, Pradeep sir, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
So-
it is my pleasure, and I also enjoyed discussing with them. And suddenly, when I looked at it was 50 minutes over, and then two of the areas I not started with on collaboration and the skill. I think I have to conclude a little bit over there with 1 or 2 questions, and our audience also asked very good questions. We want to give opportunity for them as well. I think all their questions are answered.
Yeah, hopefully. But it never happens, sir, that all the questions are answered. It's a webinar. But I'm sure Venkat did a good job. He would have collated all the questions together. So, sir, I'll request if you wish to, you can leave the dais today. I'll interact with the audience and take another 1 minute or two from them.
I think please go ahead. So
Sure.
thanks a lot. Thanks for giving this opportunity, and hi to all the audience, and wish you all a very good career in EV.
Thank you, Mr. Pradeep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I'll share my screen. I will not take more than 2 minutes today for all of you. I'll be very short and sweet. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, Manish.
Great. So instead of, I'm going a bit unconventional. I wish to correlate the learnings today with what we are doing in this segment. So I'll directly go to this particular slide. So to the audience, I want to make you aware of those who don't know skilling. These are the domains that skilling works in, and we are the only edtech company which is actually working in these domains and covers so many domains. We started from mechanical, we went to electrical electronics, we are in EV big time, we are in telecom, we are in IT as well. But the core area that we serve, not only the industry, but also the individuals, fresh engineers, experienced engineers, is the kind of value addition of content that we create. And the content we talk about is where we collaborate with the industry and subject matter experts from the industry. We start from automotive design, hybrid electric vehicle, to computations, fuel dynamics, to crashworthiness, to automotive embedded systems, to AutoSAR, which is a huge demand of the industry, the fuel systems and ultracapacitors. These are the kind of areas that industry wants engineers to come prepared with. Or if when it comes to reskilling, these are the areas where they collaborate with us to reskill their existing employees. So skilling is contributing to the overall EV revolution by acting as a reliable training partner to everyone. So talking about skilling, so this slide is more or less an introduction overall about skilling. It captures more or less every information. So this idea of skilling, the co-founders took it to Y Combinator. I'm sure most of you know Y Combinator as one of the most respected incubation setup in the world, based out of Silicon Valley. Not only we got validated, we got seed funding also from Y Combinator. And thereafter, we got the backing of Iron Pillar and individuals like Mr. Benny Bansal, etc. So we have grown tremendously in last 5 years. We are now a 2,500 full-time employee company, multi-locational, starting from Chennai to Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Mumbai, and Delhi. And we have, with our own point of view, based on our understanding, based on our experience and learning with interaction with the industry, we have already created more than 250 plus courses, which are hugely appreciated by the industry and, of course, by the individuals who offer various courses of skilling. And as an tech company, we are the only company in the country right now which is focusing on core engineering. And within core engineering, our niche area is research and development and product engineering. And we serve not only automotive and EV, but we also assist or support aviation industry, medtech industry, semiconductor, telecom, IT, etc. So, and there are two ways of contributing to the industry. One is where when individuals through self-funding come to us, we train them on a mutually decided course. And once these trained talent pool is ready, they are offered to the corporate clients of skilling at zero cost. So that's one engagement or contribution to the industry that we do, that we offer a trained talent pool which is freshly out of the engineering colleges, or they have recently completed their engineering and now looking for upgrading and making themselves ready for the corporate world with the right kind of skill set and knowledge. Next is upskilling and reskilling. So upskilling is simple when through campus organization hires their fresh GTs, we take the responsibility of training them on the core engineering aspect. So we have created, we work along on three streams primarily, for mechanical stream to embedded stream and EV streams. And it can all be customized for our corporate clients. And similarly, when it comes to reskilling, we talk about the lateral training requirements or reskilling of the existing organizations. So a lot of organizations rely on skilling, primarily the OEMs, if we talk about, they are transitioning from ICE to EV. So we are supporting a lot of organizations to upgrade their employees so that they are better matched, their skills are better aligned to the new products in starting from scratch, be it from design or visualization or conceptualizations, prototypes to the launching of the new product. So the entire line. So we create the right kind of skill sets for them. And we offer to our clients the entire, all the three kind of delivery models for them. Digital library is something which is hugely appreciated. So as I said in the previous slide, we have created more than 250 plus courses. So all these courses with our point of view are available off the shelf in our LMS, which can be easily integrated with the existing platform of various organizations. A lot of organizations from R&D PCI to Daimlers to Skoda VWs to very recently tier ones also are now opting for our LMS or the digital library platform. This is one way of creating a learning culture in their organizations and sharing or opening up them to a content which is absolutely the need of our industry ready content. And the other two models is on-ground delivery, a customized training delivery for the organizations where instructors travel to our client's location and delivers the training, which is predefined because it is created, the content or the flow of the training is predefined, created in discussion with the client itself. And third is a relevant one post-COVID and also relevant for a client where the learners are in multiple locations. So a live virtual, the way we have interacted today, is one more new model of option as a delivery for them. And going forward, few of the engagements that we have with the industry, I will not elaborate today, but sharing with you so that you have a visibility of the kind of engagement skilling have with the industry. When I say that almost half of the tier ones and OEMs are our clients today. So in this side, if you look at this specific slide, on the left-hand side, you see our training engagements with the ER&D companies and the product engineering companies. And on the right-hand side, you see these organizations who hire in volumes our trained talent pool. So this slide depicts those information. So that's all from my side. I hope all the audience had a great time today, and they had great learnings to take back. And very importantly, we will keep a few more. We were planning few more going forward. This was the inaugural webinar with the industry. Hopefully, in the coming year, this calendar year, we might have 2 to 3 more with the right kind of industry stakeholders joining us to share their knowledge with our audience. To all of you, thank you so much from my side and from Skillink. Over to you, Venkat.
Yeah, thank you, Manish. Well, thank you everyone for joining in. I'll give a couple of minutes and close the meeting. You'll be sent a feedback form to get your response on how the event was. Please take a couple of minutes to fill it out. Thank you once again for joining.